everyone! Today I'm going to be doing the Booktube Newbie Tag, which is something that I've put off for quite some time now. I have my Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey here with me because I thought that would be appropriate. So when I started my channel, which wasn't that long ago, I looked up a little bit of advice for what I should do when starting a channel, and pretty much all of it said that I should do the Booktube Newbie Tag. So I decided not to do the Booktube Newbie Tag. Maybe I'm a little bit of a rebel, but I think most people that know me know that I'm actually pretty law-abiding. But on the other hand, I didn't want to do something announcing the start of something new and then maybe not carry through with it. So I told myself that if I managed to post regularly for a while, that I would go ahead and do this tag. And of course, I probably also didn't want to have to answer questions about myself, but I guess I'll buckle down and do that today. I've been keeping up with a 3-video-a-week schedule for a few weeks now, and I'm also still definitely a newbie, so this feels like it's probably the right time. So here goes the tag. First question, why did you start this channel? If I pretend that it's not because of the current global pandemic situation, is anybody going to believe me? But to be fair, I actually only discovered Booktube a few months ago. I was looking up a book that I had read and not really enjoyed very much, and I was trying to find other people's opinions on the internet, and for some reason I decided to look on YouTube, and I found that there was a whole community of people talking about books, and I thought that was pretty cool. And so as I started watching videos, I did have the thought that if I ever was going to do something on YouTube, that would probably be it. Question number 2. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? As a musician, I know that getting asked to define what makes you unique is absolutely the worst question that anybody can ever ask. It is so painful because all you can think of is all the ways that you're like everybody else. The one thing that springs to mind in terms of uniqueness, although I can't say whether it's fun, is that I've always had this lifelong tendency to research obsessively the things that interest me. So when I'm interested in a book, I will look up interviews with the author, I will look up things that have been written about it, I look up stuff about its publication, and I tend to throw that information into my reviews. So if finding out that kind of stuff interests you, then you'll probably like my videos. And if that sounds really boring, then I might be too serious for you. Question number 3. What are you most excited about for this new channel? I think I mentioned this in my most recommended books video, but one of the things I'm really excited about is getting to the point where I get book recommendations from people that watch me and have an idea for what I might like. I've always been a person that gives a lot of book recommendations and doesn't receive so many, so I think that that would be really fun, and that aspect of the community is something I'm really looking forward to. Question number 4. Why do you love reading? Reading is definitely just a way of life for my family. My dad is a professor, my mom is an author and editor, so it was never even really a question. Reading is just something that I did growing up. I think as a kid, I lived a lot of my life through books, and when I wasn't reading, I was daydreaming about stuff that I was reading or had read. I was definitely that kid that was just constantly reading a book under my desk in school instead of paying attention or doing my work. I think now as an adult, I have a really busy and fulfilling and active life, so I don't think I really have that same need for escapism that I had as a kid, but I still love to read, and I'm still very interested in reading a lot of things. I feel like more than even something I love, my desire to read kind of feels like an appetite. Like if I don't read for too long, I get hungry, but then also there are times where I read way too much and then my mind starts feeling kind of bloated and sluggish. Question number 5. What book or series got you into reading? That's a pretty tough question, but I do remember when I was 5 or 6, my mom used to read Dickens out loud to me. I remember her reading David Copperfield to me and Great Expectations, and I think her sharing her love of those books with me really helped me learn to love reading. When I was a little bit older, I remember when I was like 6, really loving the Redwall series. Maybe a couple years after that, as I got further into elementary school, I started finding a bunch of adult fantasy. There wasn't really young adult fantasy even out there at the time, even though I was a little bit too young for both young adult and adult at that time. Probably I read a lot of Mercedes Lackey, I read Marion Zimmer Bradley, Anne McCaffrey, a lot of the sort of classic traditional fantasy. I read David Eddings, the Belgariad, Terry Brooks, which I wasn't a huge fan of, Dragonlance, basically every fantasy I could get my hands on. Also, thinking back when I was a younger kid, I really loved anything with Greek mythology or Robin Hood or King Arthur, so I think my love of fantasy really stemmed from my love of those stories. Question number 6. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I can't really think of too much. I'm kind of curious how much planning different people do on their videos versus being able to just be spontaneous in front of the camera. I find that especially with reviews, if I don't plan out some sort of sequence of thoughts, it's hard to stay organized and my thoughts just go all over the place and it's hard to be coherent. I've also noticed this trend where people have color-coded bookshelves, and that really kind of both horrifies and delights me. Like, who are these people that don't alphabetize their books? It's really strange, but also strangely appealing. So I'm sort of intrigued as to what leads people to organize their bookshelves by things other than genre or alphabet. Also, if your books are organized by color, how do you find things if you can't remember what color the book was? Question 7. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? Well, part of the reason I waited this long to do the tag was probably so I could answer something other than posting regularly. I've actually been doing a good job of posting regularly, and I feel like, not to jinx it, but that's been going pretty well. So I have to come up with something else to say. One of the things that I think kind of intimidates me about BookTube is the aspect of commenting on other people's videos and even sometimes replying to comments. I'm not a super shy person, but sometimes talking to people online instead of in person just makes me a little bit more self-conscious about what to say or how I'm coming off. So I feel like to me, that is kind of the biggest challenge to overcome because it's something that I really want to do and I want to engage with people on YouTube, but it's also something that makes me a little bit nervous sometimes. The other challenge that I have is that I'm not filming in front of my bookshelf, and I'm not sure if that means that I'm not legitimate as a person on BookTube. I'm actually filming in front of our games shelf because this feels like the best spot to film. The light is actually the best, and our biggest bookshelf is in the bedroom where there isn't really a lot of room to film. So hopefully I don't need the bookshelf to prove that I do own some books, but you know, we have a pretty cool game collection. I think the boxes look pretty nice. Question 8. When did you start reading? I'm not sure if this question is supposed to be when did I start reading at all or when did I start reading seriously. I guess in my case the answers are kind of the same. I wasn't super early to start reading. It was sometime in kindergarten, so I was either 4 or 5, I guess. And the weird thing about it was that I probably knew how to read for a while before that, but I was just holding out. I've always kind of liked to do things at my own time. I didn't get my driver's license until right before my 22nd birthday, which was really the laughing stock of all of my friends. But anyway, I started reading or showed that I knew how to read in kindergarten, and then basically immediately I started reading chapter books. So the first things I remember really reading after Dr. Seuss is like Charlotte's Web, and I remember reading Treasure Island. So that's when I started reading. Question 9. Where do you read? Well, I feel like I don't really have a lot of options right now. I used to read pretty much everywhere. That's actually one of the reasons I really like having books on my phone. If I'm in line at the store or waiting or stuck on an elevator with people I don't want to talk to, then I can just spend a quick minute reading. But right now the options are pretty much the couch, the balcony, and the bed, and I think I've read all of those places in the last few days. I did used to be a bedtime reader for most of my life. Even up through college, I would never go to sleep before reading a book for like half an hour before I turned out the lights. But in the past few years, I've gotten way too old and tired, and bedtime is not a time I read anymore. Instead, I pretty much just collapse, put on a YouTube video, and fall asleep. Question 10. What kind of books do you like to read? Overwhelmingly fantasy and science fiction. I wish I could claim that I was a diverse reader, and actually I do like books in a lot of different genres, but I don't spend as much effort as I should branching out and reading different things. Other than fantasy and science fiction, I like historical fiction a lot. I haven't read a ton of historical fiction recently, so if you have any good recommendations, please let me know. I have a soft spot for mystery series, including some classical or like more traditional mystery series like Agatha Christie type books, but also more detective type stories. I've also noticed that there are a ton of stories in other genres that sort of go back onto the tropes and cliches of detective fiction, so that's something that pops up everywhere. I do occasionally read more contemporary or more literary fiction. It's not something I actively seek out, but it's definitely something I do enjoy at times. I'm not sure if I've ever read a romance book. I guess I've read some things that could maybe get classified as chick lit, if that is still a genre that people talk about. It is kind of a derogatory name, I guess, as if things that women like must just, that's just for chicks. Anyway, romance isn't really something that I read a lot. I have always appreciated classics, and I've read a lot of classics. Again, that's not something that I'm necessarily actively trying to read right now, but it's not something that I'm averse to reading, and it's something that I've read a lot of in the past. Basically, I read pretty much anything. I'm willing to read anything, but you're probably going to see this channel skew heavily towards fantasy and science fiction with a few other things thrown in there. I hope going through that tag gave you an opportunity to get to know me a little bit better. I'm looking forward to getting to know some of you guys better as well. So thanks for watching.